Hello, Joy Brooks from Email and Coffee. An immigrant from Cuba, Teresa Lawrence is an author and community leader, spreading happiness and leadership through the Trueness Project and the Grand Butterfly Gathering. She's a mission on wings. And now, Teresa Lawrence. Hello, everybody. Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. I'm talking with Teresa Lawrence today. And, Teresa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Teresa Lawrence, and the M stands for Maria. And I am Cuban, and in Spanish culture, there are a lot of people that are named Maria, and we always go by our second name. And so I kept the M, and I go by Teresa, and I also keep it because that's the way most people can find me on Amazon. I am an author, a speaker, and a coach. And I am the executive director of a nonprofit called the Trueness Project. And I'm here today to promote my nonprofit and my books and the Grand Butterfly Gathering, which is coming up in June.
Yeah, we were talking about that. But before we go to the gathering, you mentioned that you are of Cuban descent. So let's talk about coming to America, because from what I gather, it wasn't America first.
No. And right now, I think sharing immigrant stories is important because of what's going on in the world. There's so much war. Kids are being sent to the border alone, and I completely resonate with that. My family left Cuba in 1971, and I was 3 years old. My father was a medical professor at the University of Havana, and the Communist National Anthem was played at this event where the faculty was speaking. And my father didn't believe in communism. He didn't think anything of it. The revolution had happened, and he didn't stand up, and everybody else stood up. And when that event was almost done, everybody turned around and pointed to him and said, "You don't belong." And what happened next, the government sent him an official letter. I have a copy of the letter. And they called him an enemy of the state. All of our possessions were confiscated. He lost his job. He went to prison. My mom lost her job. And there's a couple. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and we have nothing. And we are forced to live with relatives while my father is in prison and petitioning to get us out of the country. It took a while, and we finally got permission. We went to Spain because we couldn't come here first. And while we were in Spain, my father studied, and he got his medical license in the United States and our green cards. And that's how we got to the US. But what is important for me from that story and what started this whole journey, and I want to share this with everybody because I'm here to promote so many things, but there's a story behind this. I was 3 and I was terrified when I left Cuba. And my grandmother, who was never formally educated, understood the power of story. She was a magical storyteller, and she knew that I needed something to get me through what was about to happen. And before we left Cuba, she handed me a doll, and she said, "No matter what happens to you, you tell your stories to this doll, and make sure that the end of your stories are always glorious." And she said, "I don't know what will happen, but the outcome is up to you." And when we got to the US from Spain, no one could take in a family of 6, and we all scattered. And so I am now 3.5, 4 years old, living with strangers, terrified. And my story is my parents have abandoned me. And so, because I'm there, and I didn't, in my young mind, it couldn't occur to me that they were doing the best that they could possibly do under the circumstances. And I started telling stories to that doll, until I figured out the power of story. And then I figured out later on, as my family got back together when my father started working as a doctor, and we all moved together, that my father had a choice point in Cuba whether he was going to be a victim, whether he's going to sit there in a prison and say game over. And that would have been the lesson that we all would have learned.
Mm.
And instead he said, no, I am going to make a better life for myself and for my children. He moved us to the United States, and that's what he did. And the end result of that story is that from those experiences, I wrote this book, and it's called Gloriousness, and it can be found on Amazon, and it teaches children how to process their emotions and how to, excuse me, how to own their power of personal narratives. They can decide what and who they're going to be each day. And the story they tell themselves is the story that's being reflected out into the world, and that's what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot change the experiences we've had, but we can control what we think of them, what we learn from them, and what we share with the world about them.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes kids need to process some things, and it's hard. It's hard when you think about kids going through trauma, because you obviously want to um, make them suffer less or not at all, and you want to protect them. I mean, that is what we do with children. We protect them, but there are some, I guess, mechanisms that we have as humans. You were lucky enough to have the doll. And I think those are what I mean by mechanisms, and like safe ways for kids to play things out, right? Safe ways to play them out, as opposed to bullying or, getting frustrated and using, fists or getting angry. There are some ways to play them out. Your grandmother happened to be pretty smart.
She gave me a true gift. My experience has been that people that bully have been bullied or have grown up in a space where that is considered normal. There are many families that, because it would be shameful to share that um, violence has happened in the home, or that someone has had a child out of wedlock, and they hide those things. And I understand that there's a cultural reason why people think that they must do this, but my experience is that all that does is foster and instill a consciousness of victimhood in generations. And it is my belief that we are all entitled to share our stories and to get those emotions out of us, because once we do, then the anger is gone. There's no need to bully other people. There's no need to shame other people. We are all human. We all go through these experiences. Life does what it does.
Yeah, it's pretty. I was thinking today that being a woman, so I'll just say as a woman, I'm pretty sure that there's a very small percentage of women across the world that have not been. I'll use the term. It's a big term. Brutalized in one way or another.
I will agree with you. And
Because we're the weaker sex, somewhere down the line, we've been bullied by men, by other women, right? By a system. And it's difficult to work through that, champion that, not like you said, shame, like not hold it as something shameful that happened to me, and I'm so ashamed of that.
will disagree with you that we are the weaker sex. Maybe we're physically weaker.
Yes. We're not
Maybe
exactly. Yes.
maybe we're physically weaker, but there are mechanisms of power, and we each yield our own power and influence in our own way. So even in a community where men are allegedly in power, women really have influence, and we have to honor that. But in
No, I
terms
agree with you. I agree
but
with
in
you.
terms of of victimizations and stories, I don't know when it became commonplace to allow people to be brutalized and to accept that as normal practice. And I will agree, women, and I think both men and women, you know, their abuse is abuse,
Mhm.
and it should not be tolerated at this age. We're, I mean, I understand that there's war going on in this world, but in our families, there's no reason to perpetuate that. There is no reason to treat somebody badly simply because you were treated badly in the past. And it is a recognition that you have that pattern in you, and simply giving yourself the opportunity to say, yes, that's why I'm doing this. But most people don't look inward. They look outward. Most people blame other people for where they are in their life. They don't take responsibility. And that's a shame, because at some point we are responsible for our choices. We are responsible for our actions, and we are responsible for our own happiness. I am not responsible for what happens to you in any way, unless I'm actually beating you with a stick, right? Or doing something to you. If your experience is your own. And what my grandmother taught me is that regardless of what happens, I can take that experience and move from it. Sometimes you can't change the fact that you were abused, but you can change the thought process and the outcome. It is amazing to me that people go through abuse and then they feel guilty. The victim feels guilty of and responsible for this experience. And it's like being victimized twice.
Yeah.
The experience happened, and then they shut down. You've basically shut down a person's life. So I often wonder if that's just a form of social control, of limiting people's power and just stopping evolution. And I don't stand for that.
Well,
I want that to stop.
it's that process. It's that downtrodden philosophy that one person has, where they've been told you'll never be anybody. You're worthless. I'm going to beat you because of that. Go to your room. You can't play basketball. Whatever it is. You're ugly. You're stupid. Whatever it is. Whatever the child or the person is told. Then they grow up and they do it to their children.
Exactly.
And the child believes it, and they think, I'm guilty of these things. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. And if they get angry, now they're reaching out as a victim. Instead of saying, I'm not stupid. I'm not Einstein, but I'm not stupid. And I'm just going to pick myself up and find something that I can fill my time with, instead of, listening to this other person who is wrong.
Oh, you just reminded me of a funny story. I might get this completely wrong, and so your listeners are going to go crazy and start sending you. But it's a story about Thomas Edison and how a letter was sent home from school to his mother, and it said, "Your son is unteachable. He's not smart." It was something like that, and we can't teach him in this school. He's never going to succeed. And he asked his mother what the letter said, and his mother turned to him and said, "It says you're a genius, and that the school doesn't have the resources to teach you at your level," or something like that. That was a brilliant response, and it changed that man's life, and it changed history.
Yes.
Can you imagine if she had responded in a different way?
Well,
And
yeah, that's that is the plight of humanity. I mean, there's so many things on just the family level that need to be fixed. As soon as you get out of the house, they double, triple, and they become these big, these big, huge things, big problems. But just within the house. And I think that's, I'm going to connect it with your trueness and your belief in transformation. I think that we all owe it to ourselves to transform many times during life. Because when we come up against the wall, we walk right into the wall and we hit our head and we go, ouch. The obvious thing is to turn around. But sometimes we just keep on walking into the wall because we're told we'll never amount to anything, or we're stupid. So you just keep on walking to the wall.
I'm very passionate about teaching leadership in schools, and this is why. If a child doesn't have the skills to say, this is happening to me now, why is it happening? What am I learning from it? How do I move on from it? And what is it that worked and what is it that didn't work? One would think that children should have those skills when they graduate, but they don't. And they also don't have any wealth consciousness skills. They believe that, I don't know what they believe about money, but I do know that I honestly believe that everybody is entitled to wealth and that everyone should know how to handle money. And most of these kids, I know I just started a nonprofit and people are like, well, what are you doing? Yes, I want to raise funds. And yes, I want to give it to children that need help. But you don't give money to people that will throw it away. You give them skills, you give them knowledge, so that when they do get money, they know how to value it, how to invest it, and how to move forward. And the book, my leadership book, The Leadership of Play, is all about getting people. I talk about the leadership of play. That's my leadership style. That's my coaching style, and it will relate to the butterfly event. It is very difficult to ask somebody to keep hitting that wall because they will turn around. They're like, I'm getting hurt. This is really painful. I don't want to do this. And the value of a coach, or simply reading books, which is less expensive than paying for a coach, and equally valuable because you're learning stories, is that you get to realize that your greatest fear is standing in the way of your greatest success. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give you a few examples of this. So I wrote the book Gloriousness, and in my heart, I wanted to give it out to immigrant children all over the world. And I was terrified to speak in public. A year ago, this conversation could not be happening because I worked many years as an attorney writing briefs. I'm amazing behind the scenes. I was like a secret genius. I loved being behind the scenes. It felt like I was in control. I was creating superstars. But the problem with that is that I am trying to change the world now. I'm trying to give away my book. I'm trying to change consciousness. And I can't do that if nobody knows who I am or what I'm doing. And I had never spoken in public before. And I had just started the nonprofit, and I thought I had started it to give out books. It makes sense. I wrote this book. I'm going to go off and give it to people, and they're going to read it, and they're going to transform. These are the thoughts going on in my head, right? And I signed up for the Kenya Keynote Speakers Tour. And this is an extreme example of the leadership of play, because usually most people would not do this, but I was terrified to speak in public. So I signed up to speak in public. And I didn't realize that when you go to Kenya and you speak in front of schools, the smallest crowd is 500 people. So I landed in Kenya at 8 a.m. on September 9th. That afternoon, I was speaking to 500 people, and I was shaking like a leaf. And they all have it on tape. You can all find it. And then I was interviewed by the Kenyan media, and they said, because everybody has an agenda, everybody wants to get their message across. And I said the right thing. I said leadership should be taught in schools, because if you did, you would give children skills to move on. right? One of the leadership skills is integrity and being in your integrity, your truth. And I got on the news, and then we kept talking to other people. And by the time I was done, I had spoken to 12,600 people. And looking back on that, I was just like, I had no idea who I was. So I was like, who's that old person? And so it is leaning into fear that's going to get you where you want to go. I'm only thinking of giving out these books and helping students. But as a result of that experience, the Trueness Project completely changed its focus. Because before, the focus was about me. I'm being honest, you know? And it's really not about me. That child that was scared and got to the US.
It's about every child that's scared.
Yeah. And that's what I figured out on that trip. And so when I say, what is the Trueness Project? The Trueness Project is all about empowering people to tell their stories in a variety of ways. And it's about truth and integrity and authenticity. And that starts with knowing who you are. What is your truth? Not your parents' truth, not your community's truth, not the stories that are running in your head because you've been abused, because that's not you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out who you are and what you want. And my nonprofit is set up to help people tell their stories in authenticity, a safe place for them to share who they are and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that trip in Kenya, I have a Kenya initiative because everybody needs certain, I guess, tools to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And when I spoke there, I spoke about my experience, and my truth is that I don't believe anybody you can have anything taken from you. I mean, just as our family did, and you have two things left: your mind and your education. So anybody who says, I've had everything taken, I'm done, they can look at all the successful immigrant stories throughout the world, because my family is not the only family that has gone through this. You know, this is like a universal theme, and there are people that succeed and people that don't. And the people that succeed take that story and say, okay, I have it within me to move forward.
Mm-hmm. I can
And
start all over. I've got a clean
yes,
slate.
yep.
Here's
And
something that I was thinking as you were talking, that the education system is lacking and has created a coaching environment for adults, for the
yes,
children that never learned these critical lessons. So wealth, wealth management, leadership skills, speaking skills, all of these things should be in the curriculum in education.
absolutely. That's my goal.
And so we've created this coaching,
It's an entire industry.
exactly. And at the same time, the education system is crumbling. And what's happening is that all of these cottage education, small local systems are beginning to spring up for children. So the old concept of, the one room schoolhouse where, the teacher, the educator, who, for a better word, is a coach. The educator is teaching a whole bunch of children the ABCs, essentially how to read and write and do arithmetic. Our kids aren't even learning that.
They're not learning it because they're not in their bodies because of what's going on at home. And if they had the leadership skills that to release what was going on at home, they would be able to focus on where they are and what they're doing in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think it was Andrew Carnegie in Think and Grow Rich. And it's so funny because, everybody who reads Think and Grow Rich, they think they've discovered like the truth. Like
That book just came across my face today. So keep on going.
Oh, so anyway, so in the book, so I haven't met anybody who hasn't had the same experience, except that I went a little extreme. I actually started trying to do what he said to do. So Think and Grow Rich is masterful. It teaches you everything that I'm talking about. It's all in the book. And then Andrew Carnegie wrote in there, I believe it was, I don't know, it was 1929 or 1932. He said, if this is taught in school, it would reduce the time that children spent in school by half. And that was written back then. And I read that, this is many years ago, and I'm like, brilliant. This needs to be taught in schools. And then I go out and I try to convince people to do this, and no one's interested in doing that. But I do know that all these things that we spoke about, this cottage industry of teaching leadership, that's going to catch on, and it's important. Leadership training and coaching is important because it doesn't stop. We don't stop evolving. But it would be better for the entire world if it were taught in schools. And when children graduated, they would be able to be at a higher level. So when they're going through new coaching experiences, you're not starting at the beginning.
Right. But, the relationships that we have in everyday life are also teaching us things. So,
absolutely.
Right. So, friendship is a complicated thing. Marriage is a complicated thing. And it's not to be taken for granted that, oh, she's my friend. It's not to be taken for granted like that, because what is a friend? I mean, really, that was one of the biggest things I went through after my husband died. I thought, gosh, what is a friend? He was my best friend. So now I've got to refigure everything out and find friends. What is a friend? Have I taken advantage of friends? Have I been a bad friend? I went through all of these things. And you'd think something like friendship is, oh, come on, Joy. Why are you even bothering about that? But it is friends through life that can honestly make or break you.
That is a powerful question. And it is true leadership that you actually sat down and you said, what is friendship? And what I have found, I'm going to bring it back. Every day somebody sends me a butterfly. I promise I'm going to get to the butterfly event soon. So somebody sent me an image of a caterpillar and a butterfly, and it said she turned into a butterfly, but the caterpillars wanted her to come back, to turn back into a caterpillar, and there was no way she could do that, and she flew away. And with friendships, we are all evolving. We are all having different experiences, and we all have separate goals. And what happens when you get to a point where your vision for the world and your goals aren't the same as your friends? And for example, like, I'm Cuban. You all know Cubans like drinking. We all drink. I'm not telling, anything out of bounds here. We love our vino, we love our cafecito, our little rum. But this was a year, or all of last year and up to now, was a year of me, and I was leaning into fear. I was learning how to public speak, and I refused to take any alcohol or do anything that would impinge on my ability to perceive what was happening in the moment. Because if I start drinking wine before I go on stage, I'm going to have to drink wine to go on stage in the future, right? But there are family gatherings and there are events where people go and they drink. And I sat there and I said, I'm not drinking. And people honestly came to me and they said, what is wrong with you? What is going on? They couldn't conceive of the fact that I needed to do this change for me. And I know that this sounds like a silly example, but it's an example of when you decide to do something for yourself that goes against the grain because they don't understand. that you're not doing anything wrong.
Right. Right.
And at that point, it seemed like people were dropping off.
Mm-hmm.
I can still have fun and go to a bar and not drink.
Mm-hmm.
But culturally, it seemed like such a shocking shift in behavior that it was like a pull. They wanted me to start drinking. And so I'm giving you that example for friendships because friendships evolve and you move on, and your goals may not be my goals, but both goals are valid, right? And it's someone got very upset with me one day when I said, you need a friendship upgrade.
Well,
And because but that's what happens.
it happens. If I also when my husband died, I also before he passed away, I realized that he needed me because he had cancer. He needed me, and I realized that there might be a moment where I needed to be sober, completely sober. Like you said, women are stronger than men. I needed to be able to be in the moment that he might not be, and that it would not be a good thing if I was drunk or anything. So it's like, that's it. The next day I stopped drinking, and I haven't had a drink since. And there are many times that people say to me, oh, just have a glass of wine. And I'm like, I stopped drinking and I really enjoy being in the moment sober. It's my new high. Just leave me alone. And people stop inviting me to things.
Isn't that fascinating?
Because, she's not going to drink, and she's a bummer, she's going to, she's a drag. And I get it because there is the moment where, the party starts and everybody's having a good time, and then everybody eventually gets drunk and you're not. And now the moment's gone. There isn't anything. There isn't anything because they're on a different level. And they're all laughing about something and getting silly and sloppy, and you're thinking to yourself, this is not what I thought it was. And that's one of the reasons why I do enjoy sobriety. I think that everybody should check it out just for a little while. If they're, like you said, you were speaking, you didn't want the drink should be a reason or the way to calm down. You needed to teach yourself how to get into the moment and to calm down so that you can
Yes.
repeat that yourself on a dime.
Yes.
Not with something outside your body. You needed to be in more or less as much control of the moment as possible. As much control as possible. And that's I guess that was my realization in life, was that I feel like I'm unfiltered, so the bull in the china shop. So when I realized, oh, you know what, if I'm sober, I'm a little bit more in control of what I could do in the moment. And I think I like it that way. And that was it. That was it for me. That was the realization. And I think that responsibility, it's not so much alcohol as much it was, I'm taking on a responsibility here of being in the moment. And when I'm not in the moment, it will be all my fault. It won't be because I drank too much. It will be because I didn't rise to the moment, whatever. And I will learn how to deal with that. And, that goes along with leadership. I think, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. And I'm not an educator. I think that everybody can be taught something, that everybody has a skill. The skills, some people may be doctors and lawyers, right? Some people may be able to fly planes, and other people may be able to take care of children. Other people may be able to make a clay pot. there are many things that they could do, and in no means is one any better than the other. All of those are needed for the civilization, for the community.
It's a complement. That's why we all have special skills, so that we can move on.
And I think that's what needs to be recognized in schools. Like, what does little Johnny have inside of little Johnny that is going to teach him to be confident, teach him to be aware that he's skilled, that no one could take that away from him.
And that he gets to choose what he's going to be.
What he's going to be.
They're in immigrant families, everybody keeps asking me, why did you go to law school? I said, because I was given a choice. My dad was going to pay for either medical school or law school. We still had loans, but one or the other. And I didn't have the wherewithal within me at the time to say, no, I want to go to journalism school, or I want to be a teacher. That was not in my abilities yet. Now I'm like, I'm going to do this, and no one's going to tell me otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But if you teach children to be in that position at an earlier age, you're saving. There are so many people that hate their jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like my whole thing, the leadership of play. You go into a company and you say, okay, who's enjoying their time here? And nobody will raise their hand because they don't want to scare the boss. But I'm like, that's why I'm here. Imagine the productivity of people if they actually enjoyed what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
If they chose their path.
If you gave them a way to learn,
Mm-hmm.
to recognize, because they'll be 40 years old and they'll say, what am I doing? As opposed to, oh, I have this skill. I'm flexing my muscles, learning this skill, and I'm planning in the next 5 years to take this skill and to do this with it.
Right.
They don't know that. And for most people, their skills are already there. They don't recognize them, and they don't necessarily know. I've said this a million times, how transferable these skills are. So, for example, a woman that stays home and takes care of their children. The children grow up, the woman goes to work, looks for a job, and they say, well, what have you been doing? Oh, I've been a mom. Oh, well, we need experience doing this, that, and the other thing. She's been running a home. She's been responsible for, they don't take that into account. There are a lot of transferable skills there.
No, absolutely.
If a woman says, I had 5 children that I've been taking care of, and now I'm looking for a job. Oh, well, you don't have any experience. That would be a lot of HR experience in my mind. Are any of those children in jail? No. What are those children doing right now? Well, one is married, one is a doctor, one is a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I think you need to be in our HR department. I'm being slightly simplistic, but
no, but you're right. In many ways, people, that is a consciousness, a belief that society has that needs to change. I mean, so from a personal do-gooder perspective, there are a lot of people in prison, and they get out of prison and they're, quote, rehabilitated, and nobody will give them a job. What do you think is going to happen to those people if they don't have jobs?
They're going to go back to prison.
They're going to do something to go back to what they're comfortable with.
Yes.
So that has to open up. And I know that there are fabulous nonprofits that help people that have been in prison find jobs. That's so important. And there are also nonprofits that help, mothers going back into the workplace get jobs. The fact that a nonprofit has to exist to create that is so interesting to me, because it should be part of the natural narrative, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about butterflies.
Okay, butterflies. On June 29th, 2024, as a means of promoting the Trueness Project, my nonprofit, and to encourage awareness of butterflies and pollinators, because they are so important to the world that we live in. They bring so much joy and are so helpful. I am hosting the largest gathering of people dressed as butterflies in history. And I know that when I told Joy this, she was like, nope, nope, it's not happening. It's not happening. And then I explained to her the whole transformational process of that's our story. You know, each one of you listening is a butterfly. I don't know what stage you're in. You might have the most glorious wings on the planet right now, but the entire event is designed to take people outside their comfort zone. It's taking me outside the comfort zone because I have to do so many things I don't know how to do in order to get this done, that it's fabulous. But on June 29th, 2024, I am asking the world to dress up as butterflies, to make a stand, to take a stand for a transformed world. I am standing for community, creativity, and love. And I am asking for people all over the world to dress up, and let's all flap our wings together and raise the consciousness of the planet. If you turn on the news, there's so much hate and violence and all this nasty stuff. So for one day, I'm giving the world an option. Choose love, choose community. You may not agree with your neighbor, but if you're dressed up as a butterfly and they're dressed up as a butterfly, you're going to have that experience together, and maybe a conversation will happen and you'll find a way to get along and to move your community forward. I am looking for butterfly captains, which also made Joy laugh. And what I mean by that, if you sign up to be a captain, I would like you to have a party where you invite people to dress up as butterflies, and then you send me your pictures from all over the world, and you can be part of the world record attempt. We'll plaster you all over the website, butterflymarch.com. You can sign up to be part of the event on butterflymarch.com. And if you are an author or want to be one, we're having a book, The Grand Butterfly Gathering, Wings for a Transformed World. If you want to do that, get a hold of me at my email, yourtrueness@gmail.com. For that book, there's only one time that there's a first book. This is the Trueness Project first transformational book, and it's going to come out on June 1st, the same month as the Grand Butterfly Gathering, and it's going to showcase you as a transformational leader. And if you send me a 5-minute video, you'll get that. This you have to do fast, because on March 16th, we're doing a 90-minute television show, and it is 2 days after National Butterfly Day. So that should be really, really fun. And so you'll get your story put up on that. And yes, if you're a captain, I will send you a butterfly outfit and a kick-ass AI image of you dressed as a butterfly. So that's my story.
I have to share this with you. I walk my dogs every day, and I take the same route every day. And every day, there are specific corners that have garbage. McDonald's cartons, plastic bottle, can of beer. I mean, and I'll walk past it and I'll be shaking my head because I really don't understand. If it's from garbage pickup where the guys pick up the garbage and it falls out, okay, but it's your house. It's your corner. Pick it up. You picked up the garbage can to bring it back in the house. There's garbage on the floor. Pick it up. And then it's there again the next day. And it's there the next day. And it's really irking me. And I was getting angry, and I thought to myself, well, it's your fault. You're not picking it up either, are you? There's a problem
That's right.
here. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, but I'm making excuses. Yeah, but I'm walking the dogs. People are going to look at me and think that I'm eating McDonald's when pick it up, I said. So I picked it up. And then yesterday, so that was about 4 days ago, I finally got disgusted. And I picked it up and I brought it home. Then I saw a box and I picked it up and I brought it home. Then I saw a big iced tea bottle and I picked it up and I brought it home. And I thought to myself, am I going to have to go out with the dogs with a big old garbage can and start collecting garbage? And I'm thinking, now that you're talking, I'm thinking, yeah, that probably would be a good idea. Well, it irks me. And the problem is when you are presented with a problem, And it may be a small problem that is personal to you. It may be a social problem that has nothing to do with you. I don't know. It could be anything. And you think it through and you think and you say to yourself, somebody has to fix this. That somebody could be you.
That's right.
And instead of getting angry about it and then going on Facebook and saying, oh, you know what, blah, 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 or getting frustrated by the end of the day and yelling at your kids because now you're so frustrated about it, you need to blow steam. Just do it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a garbage bag with me tomorrow when I start walking the dogs. I'm going to start picking everything up. And I'm going to look like the garbage lady. They used to call me the dog lady. Now they'll call me the dog lady with the garbage bag.
And hopefully butterflies will show up along your path.
That's exactly right. It's probably the transformation is that people will see it and they'll think twice. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm just trying to clean up the neighborhood. I don't understand why people do this stuff. They're in a car and they throw it out of the car. What? It's not your neighborhood? Oh, okay. This neighbor's garbage, but your neighbor's I'm sorry. I'm going off. So, what else haven't we covered here? We talked about the butterflies.
Oh, the one thing we haven't covered, when this airs, I'm going to be in Costa Rica at a butterfly sanctuary retreat. And that's going to be a fabulous experience. I'm bringing butterfly outfits for everybody to put on, which, Joy, if you were there, I would make you uncomfortable. And it would be so great to have you expand into that zone. So when you're listening,
the uncomfortable zone.
Yes. Really, transformation happens outside of the comfort zone.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what was happening with me. I'm like, am I going to have to carry a garbage bag and look like a wacko? Yes. Go ahead.
In fact, I'm reading a book now by Robert Collier. I forgot the name of it, but he starts the book by saying that when you are challenged, when life brings you obstacles, that's when you grow.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're always content and you're in the same spot. And he goes through all of these examples. And can you imagine if somebody like you with picking up garbage, I'm sure that we have cell phones because somebody decided to make their life easier. They're like, I need this and I'm going to create it. And that's the way life evolves. You get a challenge and you figure out a way through it.
That's right.
So there you go.
That's exactly, and that's and everyone has the ability to change something internally in their household and in their community.
Absolutely.
Everybody. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody to do this. Instead of saying somebody should, as soon as you catch yourself saying somebody should, that means you are somebody. And if you could say to yourself, somebody should, wait, maybe I could do this on a small scale. I can't rid the world of garbage, but I can certainly rid my little walkathon, and I will. I will. So thank you so much. It's been great talking with you. It's been great finding out about your you're coming to America, about your butterflies, and you've made me think whatever a little bit about my comfort zone.
Yes, we all get to go outside of it and have fun together. That's how we grow. Thank you so much. It's been an honor being here.
Thank you. Take care.